Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Cover 2 podcast. I'm your co-host, Jared Smith.
And I am Nick Nenad.
Guys, welcome back. We've taken a couple weeks off for the holiday break between Christmas and the New Year. Nick's been in Arizona with his family. I've been here in California, chilling with my family. But guess what? We are back. And do we have a lot to talk about, especially with the NFL, guys? We are going to jump right in to the Antonio Brown saga and what is going on with that. But a little later on in the show, we're going to get into our Cowboys-Cardinals matchup that happened this past Sunday. I know Nick's got a lot to say about that. I'm still repping my boys, even though they disappointed me, so we will get into that. We will also get into the Week 18 playoff scenarios, the final week of the NFL regular season, so we will break down which teams still have a chance to get into the playoffs and which teams could be eliminated after this Sunday. And then to wrap up the show, Nick, it's the college football championship. We have a rematch of the SEC teams, Alabama and Georgia. We're going to break down that entire game, who we think will win, and all of that. But like I said, we have to start the show. Breaking news that just came down today. We're recording on Thursday, and this just happened about 20 minutes ago. Antonio Brown officially released from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nick, give me your initial thoughts. I mean, are you surprised by his actual release? Tell me what's going through your head.
You know, it's been a couple days since all this happened, and let me just start with this. What I saw from Antonio Brown on Sunday was one of the craziest things I've ever seen during an NFL game. Literally one of the craziest things. I've never seen a player quit on his team and then make a show of it. Obviously, there's been players that have quit at halftime, retired, all that stuff, and those were crazy enough scenarios. But to see a guy quit during the game and take his shirt off and really embarrass himself, that was really, really crazy, and it made for a already fun Sunday of NFL football a little bit more fun, right? So, you know, the last couple of days, people have been talking about his mental health, his football career. And then interestingly enough, yesterday, we're recording on Thursday, the day we're hearing of Antonio Brown's official release. But two things were happening the last few days, and specifically yesterday. The Buccaneers had not released Antonio Brown, which created a sense of, a sense that the Buccaneers might keep him. And Tom Brady might have been getting in the ear of management and Bruce Arians. And then also Antonio Brown released a statement. And that statement, it said that essentially Antonio Brown was being forced back into this game against the New York Jets, even though he was claiming he was injured. He has now released texts this morning, which probably were the reason he got released, of text between him and head coach Bruce Arians, where it clearly states AB is saying that he's good to go. There was an ankle injury, and that he's going to try to play. And Bruce Arians, although he said earlier in the week that he didn't know anything about Antonio Brown's ankle injury, it's now clearly in a text that Bruce Arians saw that Antonio Brown was injured and knew about it. So there's a lot of different elements to this story, and a lot has changed. But my thoughts on this, Antonio Brown's a difficult player to have on your roster. It's the reason that he wasn't signed for a couple years. It's the reason he was released from the Steelers, from the Raiders, and the New England Patriots as well. But if it is true that the Buccaneers staff was forcing a player that was hurt to get back into a game and the player refused, and that's why he was cut, that's a whole other element of this that changes the story completely. So right now, Jared, I don't know what to think about this. Am I going to trust Antonio Brown? Hell no, I'm not going to trust Antonio Brown. I don't think he fabricated all those texts, but there's no way I'm just going to take it AB's word for it. But do I know that the NFL is a little crazy and Bruce Arians is old school and a lot of those guys are old school? Yeah, and maybe they did tell him to play, and maybe that happens more often. And, it's an interesting story, but all we know is Antonio Brown is not with the Buccaneers, and that's what's important here. The AB is not on the Buccaneers anymore. The Buccaneers lose a key receiver, and they've already lost Chris Godwin for the year. So that's the more interesting part of the story, is where the Bucs are going to go from here. But yeah, Jared, do you think with the recent activity from Antonio Brown, and I don't mean him going off the field, I mean the texts and the evidence, do you think this gives him a chance to play in the NFL again? Do you think a team signs him this year or next year?
Well, that's a good question. This year, I don't know, because it clearly seems like he can't play, right? He's got a torn ligament, a messed up bone, and so if a team were to sign him this year, help you, right? If you're a playoff team, is he going to actually help you potentially win a game and get to the Super Bowl? I don't think so. And so to sign him this year right now doesn't make sense. I would say let him go have surgery and get himself from a physical standpoint, and then probably reassess and say, okay, what has he done in the offseason? Has he shown steps? Does he still want to play football? Does he still love football? Then I would maybe be a little more probably willing to sign him if I was a team. It's interesting. I was watching NFL Network last week, and apparently there was at least one GM who said that he would sign Antonio Brown right now. So obviously we don't know who that was, and I would assume it's a playoff team. But obviously he still has some clout, and he can still play. And I think that's the interesting thing, is like no one's talking about him physically like playing. Like we all know Antonio Brown can still ball. Mm-hmm. This is about gelling with a team, being a team player, and doing the right thing versus the wrong thing. Like there's a right way to handle that situation. There's a wrong way to handle that situation. At first, I didn't believe anything Antonio Brown said, right? It was like, oh man, this guy's just a head case. He's gone off the wall again. He's going crazy, because obviously it wasn't right for him to leave his team in the middle of a game. Like you said, I think it was like the third quarter or something. Yeah. The Bucs were literally about to run another play, and Antonio Brown is running off the sideline with his shirt off and everything like that. All that being said, kind of have to, like, the evidence proves that Antonio Brown might have a case here, right? Like you made a good point. Bruce Arians is very old school and in some of his thinking. But guess what? If he's injured and he can't go, he's actually probably hurting your team more than helping your team. So what I would like to know is, obviously it seems like Bruce Arians and the rest of the staff knew about this injury. So what I want to know is, okay, did they have a plan of saying, all right, AB, we want you to suit up, try, but if you can't go, then we can sit you, right? So maybe Antonio Brown was like, all right, I went out there, I played 20 snaps, I'm just not feeling it. Like I can't cut, I can't break out of my route, I can't run, I can't do the necessary things to be the receiver, right? So maybe he went to the team and was like, I can't play anymore. And then Bruce Arians was like, no, get in the game. Obviously, there was some miscommunication there, and then Antonio Brown just storms off. So I think Antonio Brown was wrong for storming off like an idiot like that and leaving the rest of his team out to dry. But I think the Bucs were also wrong from a team standpoint of trying to force a player out there when he's not ready. Because in the end, that's actually hurting your team. Like, I would rather have my fourth or fifth string wide receiver who's healthy go out and play, as opposed to Antonio Brown, who has a broken bone in his foot and can't play at all. So it's kind of like I'm on the fence, because from Antonio Brown's history, I don't want to believe a word that he says. But then after seeing those text messages, you got to take a step back and say, all right, well, maybe he has a case. Maybe he has an argument. And I think if I had to bet today, by next year, the start of the season, Antonio Brown's going to be on the team. If he, as long as he like keeps his nose clean in the offseason, doesn't do anything crazy, which is a big if, he's going to be on a team. So I don't care if it's the Jaguars. I don't care who it is, the Lions. Some team is going to take an opportunity on Antonio Brown again. And he's going to have another chance to screw up and or turn his career around.
Yeah, it's so interesting too with the Buccaneers and this game specifically, because I wonder if it was a knee-jerk reaction to them getting their ass whooped by the Jets. Like the Jets specifically, and Arians is like, get in the game. Like, we can't afford to lose a game like this. Realistically, they can. And I know from Bruce Arians when he was the Cardinals coach that he often would suit up players, like you said, with no intention of playing them, just to trick the other team. It was a fantasy guy's nightmare. People used to hate Bruce Arians for it. He would suit up David Johnson when David Johnson was in his prime, and then David Johnson would get like 2 snaps the whole game, and we'd be running our backup, right?
So, I mean, I'm cool with that though.
No,
like
sure,
from
exactly.
a competitive standpoint, that's fine because if you're the other team, you're like, oh, he's suiting up, he's probably going to play. Then you have to game plan for that. So that's fine to me. That's all competitive advantage, right? Yeah. So maybe they did have that agreement with Antonio Brown, and then it just went sideways.
Well, and that's why that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that his ankle probably it's not like his ankle's broken, right? Like he can still play a little bit, and we do know this is the playoff stretch run. There are plenty of players playing with similar injuries or possibly even worse injuries realistically. But yeah, when Antonio Brown says he can't play anymore, that's where it's like, I wonder if it was a reaction to the actual game that was being played, the fact they were getting their ass whooped by the Jets, and that, they were maybe looking at like, hey, we're dropping down seeding here and we're going to end up having to play the Cardinals or the Rams or whoever in this first round. We don't want to play these teams. So AB, get in there, I don't know. That's the whole thing is puzzling. It's not puzzling why AB left and did his thing. He's a diva. He's gonna make a show of it. He ended up at the Nets game the next day, taking Ubers. Trying to get people social media famous. They're taking him in his car after the game. He's kind of an idiot in the sense of that stuff. Like, you don't need to care that much about social media and your clout outside when you could be winning Super Bowls, right? But it is surprising to me, this whole Bruce Arians make him play, all this stuff. When you're already in the playoffs, the worst you can do is the 4th seed. And, look, the Cowboys lost anyways later that night anyways. So it's like, what are we doing, right? The Buccaneers literally wouldn't have lost the seed. They wouldn't have
Okay, so I got a question, and this is for Tom Brady, right? Does this whole thing make Tom Brady look bad? Because the only reason that Antonio Brown was in Tampa Bay was because of Tom, right? Like, Tom courted him just like he courted Gronk to come back and some other players. So, when AB first got there, I think he was staying at Tom's house, right? Like, he didn't have a house in Florida or anything like that. So he was staying with Tom and his family for a little while until he can get on his feet and get his own place. So does this make Tom look bad, knowing the history of Antonio Brown? Or was Tom just doing everything he could to win, and, like, at the end of the day, he can't control Antonio Brown?
Jared, you gotta understand something, okay? Tom Brady is absolutely bulletproof in this world, okay? Just think about the stuff Tom Brady has physically cheated in an NFL playoff game, right? He deflated the balls, okay? This dude is literally the center athlete for essentially Trump supporters, right? With the hat and all that stuff. Like, and now he's signing all these guys that are kind of, in trouble. I mean, the guy used to be friends technically with Aaron Hernandez too. Like, this guy is absolutely bulletproof in this world. There's nothing this man can do. He could have been 1 year ago at the Capitol on January 6th, and people would be like, that's kind of cool, Tom Brady's there, right? There's nothing Tom Brady can do. So, no, I don't think Tom Brady, all jokes aside, I don't think Tom Brady looks bad. There are plenty of times where a quarterback has wanted a specific player. In a different scenario, Aaron Rodgers essentially demanded that the Packers sign Randall Cobb. How much of a fit is Randall Cobb really in the offense? I don't know, right? Do they really need anybody? So plenty of times, high-profile quarterbacks, they do get these players. They try everything they can. It happens in other sports too. LeBron's done it as well, getting some questionable players on his roster too. So, no, I don't think it hurts Tom Brady. And like I said, Tom Brady's bulletproof. That guy cannot get in trouble in this world. He could do whatever he wants, and he's not going to get in trouble for it. So, but it is interesting. It would have been more interesting if Tom would have been like, "No, let's keep AB. Like, let's keep him on the roster." And
that's what I'm saying. Like, right? It's Thursday and he just gets released. Like, why not release him on Sunday? Like, he clearly didn't travel back with the team. I mean, he went in the locker room, right? Like, showered up, got his bags, and left. He wasn't able to travel back with the team. He stayed in New Jersey. So I don't understand why it took 3-4 days to actually release the guy. You know what I mean? Like, at that point, the only thing I could think of was they didn't want to release him because they didn't want another team to potentially pick him up. And if he were healthy enough help them make a playoff run. Like, right? Like, how
Yeah.
crazy would it be if obviously the Bucs are already in the playoffs, but they make it, I don't know, to the Super Bowl, they make it in the playoffs, and they have to face Antonio Brown.
Sure.
Like, how nuts would that be? That'd
I
be one
would
of the
love it.
craziest storylines that we've ever seen. So from that standpoint, that was the only thing that I could think of as why you would, I guess keep him on your roster and
Sure.
put him on like an exemption list or something. But to now just release him on Thursday, like, I don't know. I don't get it. I think there's a lot more information that's going to come out, and we'll see, because right now it's like a he said, she said. Obviously, Antonio Brown is saying that he wasn't healthy enough to play. The Bucs are saying, no, you were healthy enough, you suited up, and you basically quit on your team. So, AB's got the text and the proof to show it.
Sure.
And I think now the Bucs, it's like the ball's in the Bucs corner.
Sure.
Right? The Bucs now have to come out and respond to those text messages and kind of explain what really happened. Because Antonio Brown, I think he's put all of his cards on the table. He's got nothing to lose.
Yeah.
What does Antonio Brown have to lose? Right? Nothing.
Right.
Absolutely nothing.
Well, technically $1 million because of all the incentives. But again, Jerry,
I guarantee you, just from this week, Antonio Brown has made $1 million.
Right.
How many TV shows is he going to go on? Please, yep. Antonio Brown, $1 million. That ain't nothing. He probably got $1 million just for going to that Nets game and sitting courtside.
Good point.
Please, Antonio Brown's not worried about $1 million.
Should have sold that ticket. It would have made him a lot more money. All right, let's transition, Jared, into what is going to be my favorite topic of the day. Okay, and let me just start this segment with real quickly. This is the NFL segment, everybody. This is the NFL playoff segment. We're going to be talking about Week 18.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to start.
Mm-hmm.
I want to start with this, Jared. How about them Cardinals?
That doesn't even sound right. Nah. Yeah.
How about them Arizona Cardinals going into the Big D and winning against your Dallas Cowboys, being up by 2 possessions most of the game, holding Ezekiel Elliott to 0 rush yards in the second half. Whew. Feels good to be a Cardinals fan, Jared. You helped us out in our playoff, our playoff run here. We needed it. 3 weeks in a row, bad losses, players not executing, and then what do? We go into Dallas, a playoff team, on the road, like we're pretty good on the road, but we go in and we win, and now we get to go in. We get to play Seattle at home, who doesn't care, and we're going to be floating into the playoffs on a high. And Jerry, I can only thank your Dallas Cowboys for that. And what would only make it better is if somehow we end up matching up in the first round again, and we could just go back into, AT&T Stadium where Kyler Murray is 8-0 in his life, and we can go in there and bypass the first round of the playoffs as well. It'd be like a playoff bye, right? It'd be 2 teams in the bye: the Green Bay Packers and the Arizona Cardinals. So, Jared, I'm excited. There's nothing much else I need to say. We won the game fair and square, and we're 11-5, and we're looking up at the playoffs right now.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad someone's excited on this show, because it definitely ain't me. I'm glad that we're recording this on Thursday and not like Monday or something like that, because I was a lot more heated and I probably have a lot more choice words.
Yep.
So, I've had an opportunity to calm down a little bit, kind of collect my thoughts, really dissect this game and try to understand why Dallas lost, because in reality, there's no way Dallas should have lost this game, right? You guys, you don't have DeAndre Hopkins. You don't have James Conner. You know what I mean? Dallas basically was at full strength. They ended up losing Michael Gallup to a torn ACL middle of the game, but they had him at least for the first half. And to me, I can't defend Dallas anymore. It's like they have a good season. Yeah, there's some bumps in the road, but when you have an opportunity to beat a team that is not at 100%, you have to take advantage of it. Plain and simple, right? Dallas is at home. They've got home field advantage. They're basically at full strength. And they come out and they act like it's a last game of the regular season. We don't have anything to play for. We're not going to get up for this game type of mentality. At least that's what I saw on the field. right? Like, I didn't see that emotion, that fire, that, hey, we have an opportunity for the 1 seed. We have an opportunity to get a first round bye, get, some players more rested up, because Ezekiel Elliott is still not 100%. So he could have gotten 2 weeks of rest, right? You could have given Tony Pollard and some other players who were banged up with some nicks and injuries 2 weeks of rest. And they came out just lackadaisical. So I got to give the Cardinals credit, man. They came out, yeah, I at AT&T Stadium. To me, that means nothing. It was more the fact that Arizona just came out and they played with more heart. They played with more energy. They played with more passion. And that's something that Dallas did not play with. It's like 1 week you see Dallas blowing out a team, putting up a 50 burger on them. And the next week, they barely score 22 points, and it's because they scored 15 in the fourth quarter. So I don't know what to make of this Dallas team. It's like I wouldn't be surprised if Dallas somehow goes on a run and makes it to the Super Bowl and makes it to SoFi Stadium here in LA. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Dallas loses in the wild card game. Like, that is how much of a true wild card they are.
Yeah,
I don't really, you know what I mean? Like, on paper, this team has all the talent in the world. They're a top 10 defense. Offensively, they have the receivers, the running back, the offensive line, the quarterback. They have everything. And it's just, for some reason, they just don't show up for games. So I can't defend them anymore. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they do well and they make a run in the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if they, underachieve and lose in the first round. I can't let myself get too high on this team anymore. Partially because we just don't know who's going to show up, right? Like, I'm not going to make excuses about COVID, not going to make excuses about the referees, even though those refs sucked on both ends. There were calls that went both ways that it was some major head scratchers. I can make a lot of different excuses, but at the end of the day, Dallas just didn't play with heart, man. And it's like, if the other team gets paid too, regardless of the players that the Cardinals were missing, they came out and they did their job. So kudos to you. You're welcome for helping you guys get into the playoffs. I hope we play you guys again.
Ooh, okay.
So,
okay.
I want a rematch. I want to see Dallas and Arizona play again. And more than likely, it wouldn't be in the first round, because I'm pretty sure Arizona is going to be like 5 or 6.
Well, no.
So, there's different scenarios that can happen.
We'll get into that in a second. Yeah.
No, I'm just saying I want to play Arizona again. If I'm Dallas, you should want to play them again. You should want to get a rematch. Just like Dallas, Bay, who they lost to first game of the season. You should want to have a rematch, an opportunity to prove yourself again. I hope they want that. That would at least show me that they have some fire, that they have some, like, some type of backbone to be like, all right, we came out and put up a dud. Let's go out there again and show them who we really are. That type of mentality. So we'll see, man. But it was disappointing. I at one point I was all over Twitter, happy, excited, and then I think the whole second half I didn't look at my Twitter at all, because I figured you were just going nuts. So
yeah. Well, I was
That's
going
why
nuts.
I went MIA.
And Jared, I could have probably gone more nuts on Twitter, but I was having a good time. So I wasn't on my phone as much. I was with a bunch of people watching the game as well, including my brother. Sean, my brother was here from Arizona, here in California, and it was a good time. I want to talk about both teams really quickly before we move on. My Cardinals, like I mentioned, this was a big win for them, because they lost 3 games in a row, and we had looked really dysfunctional. Like, not even like the Cowboys, Jared. Like, we just looked like shit for 3 straight games. Like, we didn't look good at all. Mm-hmm. And so every aspect of football didn't look good for us in 3 weeks. And then we come into this game, and it wasn't our perfect game. We only scored 25 points. We were up 22-7 fairly early in that game, too. And it was still like, oh, come on, like, what are we doing here? Like, we could be doing more, right? But, we got the kicking game fixed from the Christmas game I was at. Now, there's an answer to that. We had a different holder that game, and the holder we had was back, and now Matt Prater's making every kick possible, right? So I'm gonna take it that last week's or the Colts game on Christmas was a fluke. Okay, so I'm not gonna worry about Matt Prater. Kyler Murray, 44 yards on the ground, 9 rush attempts. We obviously need Kyler Murray to run a little bit in the playoffs. That's big. Getting other wide receivers involved. Christian Kirk, 79 yards. AJ Green, 74 yards. Ertz, Antoine Wesley, 40, 30 yards.
Who is Antoine Wesley,
right?
man?
Who is Antoine Wesley? But Antoine Wesley's actually literally taken over the DeAndre Hopkins role, and he scored 3 giant touchdowns for us the last 2 weeks, the Colts game and the Cowboys game. So maybe we found a diamond in the rough here. He's obviously not a star in the NFL. I guess we don't know yet. But, like, this guy has literally become DeAndre Hopkins Jr., essentially, for us in the scheme. But so, we figured it out, and the defense obviously played well. We had that big fumble where Dak Prescott got the ball knocked out of his hands and stuff like that from Isaiah Simmons, big time in the game. So it's good. And then we only can get healthier. We have James Conner coming back. Possibly there's rumors of J.J. Watt possibly be coming back for the playoffs, which would be insane, but we're not expecting it. And a lot of the guys from the COVID list last week are back as well. We also won this game, not to rub it in your face, but kind of rub it in your face, without like two of our best linemen in this game too. We had Calvin Beachum, who was the man of the year, well-paid man of the year. Our right tackle playing left tackle that whole game. So we play well. Now for the Cowboys, Jared, and this is honest, I talk about the Cowboys all the time. I've been on the Cowboys bandwagon as Super Bowl contenders this year, and I've been on the wagon where I think they're absolutely overrated. There is one problem with the Dallas Cowboys that makes them super inconsistent, and that is your coaching staff, okay? Your coaching staff can't get players up for the game, right? We hear before this game that Micah Parsons is saying this is going to be a statement game. Okay, well, that was the exact opposite of a statement game this weekend, so nobody listened, right? Dak Prescott's going crazy before the games, hyping up the team. What happens? They score 7 points in three quarters. So what's going on? There's no voice from the coaching staff. There's no Mike McCarthy voice, right? He's just a non-existent guy in this organization, but he's supposed to be the head guy. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is Kellen Moore, I don't think knows how to coach properly in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. Because once again, Jared, I know you guys only scored 7 points and you were down, 22-7 most of this game, right? Or at least in the third quarter. But Jared, 45 yards on the ground, and from your running backs, 25. 12 attempts for 25 yards. We don't have a good rush defense. So I'm not even trying to talk crap here. I'm just saying, like, that does not make sense to me. Why was there not more rushing attempts in the first half against us when that's our weakness, right? Dak Prescott had 5 carries and 20 yards, which is more than Tony Pollard. And some of those yards came on when he got the ball knocked out of his hand against Simmons, so it didn't even matter anymore, right? So, Jared, comment on the Dallas coaching staff before we transition. Like, I think that the reason you guys are dysfunctional and a wild card going into these playoffs is because I don't know what to expect from your coaching staff every week. 1 week, like you said, they do it perfect and they put a 50 burger up. The next week, they call the exact opposite game plan you should against the team, and then they lose. And it's like, I don't even want to blame your players. I think it's your coaching staff, almost 100%.
So I'm glad you brought up the coaching staff, right? Because let's blame the coaching staff. I'm on this train with you, right? And I'll give you a couple of different examples.
Sure.
I believe it was in the third quarter, and Dallas had just stopped the Cardinals. They were in the red zone. They were on within the 10-yard line. Dallas stops them. It's fourth down, right? Cardinals originally bring on their kicking team. Matt Prater and the entire kicking staff comes on. At the last second, right, they run them off, and Kyler Murray and the offense runs back on the field. Dallas is scrambling, right? They're fumbling. They've got half of their special teams personnel on the field, half of their actual defensive starters trying to run back on the field. They have to burn a timeout right there. How does that hurt them? Well, in the fourth quarter, in the last 2 minutes of the game, when I forget who it was, I don't know if it was Chase Edmonds or which ball carrier for the Cardinals had actually fumbled and Dallas recovered, but because it was with like 2 minutes and 7 seconds left, Dallas didn't have any timeouts left, right? So they didn't have an opportunity to challenge that, potentially get the ball back and go down for, at minimum, a game-tying field goal or potentially a game-winning touchdown. So that is number one right there, an opportunity where Dallas was not prepared. Yep. They were not, ready for that scenario, right? So I give kudos to the Cardinals for kind of throwing that little trickery in there of confusing Dallas. The second, and to me, the more alarming kind of coaching blunder that Dallas did was Micah Parsons, who you brought up, right? A freak athlete, more than likely the defensive rookie of the year, and I think has an opportunity to be the defensive player of the year overall. That's how good Micah Parsons has been this year. You say, Nick, that Micah Parsons is the best athlete on Dallas's defense?
Oh, absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
100%.
Okay. Could you make an argument that Micah Parsons is probably, one of the fastest players on the Cowboys defense? Like, corner, safety, linebacker?
Yeah, I think,
fastest?
yeah, absolutely.
Sure. Okay. And just refresh my memory. The Cowboys were playing the Arizona Cardinals, who have Kyler Murray, who is arguably the fastest quarterback in the entire National Football League.
I would say
that be correct?
Sure.
Okay. So can you please explain to me why Micah Parsons, 80% of the snaps that he played in that game were at defensive end and not at linebacker, where he could have been spying on Kyler Murray? And here's my thing. I get that you want to move Micah Parsons around, put him in different spots to give your opponent different looks because you don't want them to get familiar with where you're putting your best players. I totally understand that. But in critical situations, like third down, right, when you need to get off the field, or in the fourth quarter when you need a stop to get off the field, why is Micah Parsons not spying Kyler Murray? I'm not saying that Micah Parsons is faster than Kyler Murray because I know that not to be true, but why would you have Leighton Vander Esch or Javon Curse or Keanu Neal playing linebacker in that situation and your fastest and arguably best defensive player? To me, that makes zero sense. So to me, this just proves your argument to be correct, that Dallas lost this game in part because of the coaching or the lack thereof. You're 100% right, man. Like, we can blame this on the players. We can talk about the referees and the bad officiating, but at the end of the day, Dallas's coaching is what has hindered them in some of these games in the most critical situations. Because in reality, I'm looking at Dallas right now, and they're sitting at 11-5. They've won the division. They're going to make the playoffs. Dallas had a real opportunity to be 13-3, at minimum 12-4, with an opportunity to be number one in the entire NFC and have a first. So you're right. I'm actually glad you brought that up because I kind of forgot about that for a minute. But not using Micah Parsons in the right way, not being prepared for a potential, special teams and or fourth down play. Those little things that maybe don't show up on the stat sheet, those actually come into play. So, I would love to send this clip to the Dallas Cowboys and specifically Mike McCarthy and say, what the hell are y'all doing? Like, y'all get paid millions of dollars that is your only job during the week, is to look at film and put your defenders, put your players in the best position possible to win. And I don't think Dallas put their players in the best possible position to win.
Yeah, I agree with you. I already stated it. I can remember last year, Jared, you probably don't want to remember this, and it was a team that doesn't really exist anymore. The Monday Night Football game where we like tore you guys apart. We beat you by 30 or something like that. I remember vividly. That might have been the end of Jalen Smith's career with the Cowboys, because I remember Kyler just running past Jalen Smith over and over and over again, and it was like, isn't that why you guys drafted Micah Parsons, right? One of the reasons, obviously, he kind of dropped to you guys in your lap, but one of the reasons you signed a guy like that is because our other guys suck, so we need to sign that guy, right? This freak athlete, and hope he's what we expect him to be, even after a year layoff and not playing college football. So, Jared, I agree with you, and it's. It's the Cardinals. We obviously have some questionable coaching staff points too. Can Cliff win in the playoffs? Cliff obviously has deteriorated every coaching year ever. So that's why this win is so big for us, because the trend was that Cliff Kingsbury starts his years really good even going back in college, and then ends his years like crap. So, there's questionable on both sides, but I think with the Cowboys, I do think it is literally the majority reason why they lose these big games, right? So, it's going to be interesting. But let's get into playoff scenarios, because there is a chance.
Can we please move on? I can't.
There is a chance the Cardinals could play the Cowboys. Now, the good thing, Jared, and this will make you happier, is that both our teams are in the playoffs. We would be playing in the wild card round. Like this week, it does matter for both of our teams, but also it doesn't. Like if you wanted to not play Dak, you could just not play Dak, right? If you wanted to not play Kyler, you could just not.
I wish.
Yeah, right. So, we still are in the playoffs, and there's also 14 other playoff teams that will make it. Now, the biggest notes for the standings coming into this on the NFC side are that, the 49ers and the New Orleans Saints are the only teams that have not made the playoffs yet that still have a chance. Okay, really quickly, in the NFC, the 49ers would have to lose to the Los Angeles Rams, which is very possible. And they would also have to have the Philadelphia Eagles win. That would be the only way the Saints could get in. Now, the Saints still have to play the Falcons and win. But if the Saints beat the Falcons, the 49ers lose to the Rams, and the Eagles beat the Cowboys, the Saints are in, and the New Orleans Saints, and the 49ers are eliminated. The Eagles are already in. The Cardinals are already in. And obviously, all the divisions have been clinched already, besides the NFC West, which I'll get to in a second. In the AFC, as far as making the playoffs go, there's a big game between the Ravens and Steelers. That's a playoff eliminator game. But both those teams at 9 and number 11 in the standings still have a chance. Okay, I'll get to that scenario in a second. The Raiders and Chargers also play each other in a playoff eliminator game, technically. There is a scenario where they could tie and both get into the playoffs, but that would mean the Colts would have to lose to the Jaguars, which is highly unlikely. The Colts are the 6th seed. So more than likely, we're seeing the Colts and the Chargers or Raiders get into the playoffs in the AFC. Sticking with the AFC really quickly, we do not have a number 1 seed yet. Okay, most likely we do. The Tennessee Titans play the Houston Texans. They are the number 1 seed right now, and they have the playoff tiebreaker over the Kansas City Chiefs. All they need to do is beat the Texans, and they are the number 1 seed, and they get it by. And they just brought Derrick Henry back, so watch out, NFL. Kansas City plays Denver on Saturday before the Cowboys-Eagles game. So Kansas City will know already, potentially, if Tennessee is the number 1 seed going into Sunday. The Cincinnati Bengals, which is interesting. I actually think, now I'm just going off the top of my head because I was trying to research this, but I was also trying to listen to you talk about the coaching staff for the Dallas Cowboys. The Bengals, interestingly enough, if they were to win this Sunday and the Tennessee Titans and Kansas City Chiefs were to lose, I do believe that the Bengals would be the number 1 seed based on conference record.
So they would.
Yeah, they would.
Because right now, their conference record throughout the season is 8-3. The Titans are 7-4, and the Chiefs are 6-5.
Yeah.
So you're right. But Bengals aren't playing Joe Burrow. They're resting him because of a sore knee that he injured this past Sunday. Obviously, you'd rather rest him and get him ready for the playoffs. And then Joe Mixon, their star running back, came down with COVID. More likely than not that he's out this Sunday as well. So they're going to be without their leader and their quarterback, and then their top runner. But you still got Jamar Chase. So if you're Brandon Allen, the backup quarterback, throw Jamar Chase the ball like 50 times and just see what happens. The Browns aren't playing Baker Mayfield. He's set to have surgery, I believe, next week. So, the Browns have already been eliminated. They don't have much to play for. Who knows if they're going to start their players. So you are absolutely right. The Bengals, somehow, Cincinnati, which I don't know if they've ever been the number 1 seed in their entire history. Like, that might be the Super Bowl for them right there. Not just getting into the playoffs and winning the division. If they can get somehow the number 1 seed, that would have to be a catastrophic loss from the Tennessee Titans, right? To lose to the Houston Texans. But you know what? Houston already this year, I mean, they've played in some tough games. They're not just an easy out. So I'm not just going to sit here and say Tennessee has this thing wrapped up. Not yet.
No, and Tennessee already lost to the Texans this year, so you never know. No,
where's the game played? Yeah. Is it in Houston?
Let's see.
Do you know where the game's being played?
It is at Houston. Yes. Maybe they'll bring Deshaun Watson back for the game just to ruin the Titans' playoff chances. Right? He's still technically healthy scratch.
and just to clarify, I don't think Derrick Henry's not playing this Sunday for Tennessee. No. They just started his practice window. So if you're on injured reserve, you have like a 21-day period where you can practice and show that you're ready to like actually play in a game again. So he's just starting to practice again. So who knows what his conditioning is like? Who knows how his foot's going to actually respond to, practicing? So more than likely, he wouldn't come back until maybe the divisional round of the playoffs, since they have a chance to get that first round bye. So let's Derrick Henry. If he was playing, I think it'd be more of a lock, But let's
no
breaks and
if you're the Titans, don't play Derrick Henry. I mean, come on, you don't need the guy. Even if you get if somehow you lose to the Texans right again, which would be crazy. You're still in the playoffs. Like, bring Derrick Henry back for the playoff game. Do not play him against the Texans. Like, you just never know. Just finishing off really quickly all the other playoff scenarios that are really important besides seeding. There's two divisions that have not been figured out yet. That is the AFC East and, like I mentioned earlier, the NFC West. So for the NFC West, because this is an easy one, all the Cardinals have to do is win, and all the Rams have to do is lose. Now, the Cardinals are playing a very lowly Seahawks team, so you would project that my Arizona Cardinals would win. We also have very good history of playing the Seahawks in general. And the Rams are playing the 49ers, who can't lose. Or there's a chance they're out of the playoffs, and the 49ers have been one of the hottest teams in the NFL really the last almost 2 months. So there's a chance an absolute chance the Cardinals still win this division. But if the Rams win, they win. And looking at the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills and New England Patriots have the same record. Okay, the Bills have also beat the Patriots once. The Patriots have beaten the Bills once. All the Bills have to do is win this game. That's all they have to do. Their division record against the AFC is 4-1. The Patriots is 3-2. So all the Bills need to do is win this game, and then they get to play each other for a third time in the wild card round, which will be fantastic TV to watch. But yeah, so those are your scenarios. In the AFC, you still have the Ravens, Steelers, Raiders, Chargers, and Colts alive. All those teams can also be eliminated from the playoffs this Sunday. And in the NFC, you have the 49ers and Saints still alive, and both of those teams can also get eliminated. So very, very interesting stuff. Now, Jared, moving to the schedule for this weekend, this is what I love about the NFL. Sorry, I've hijacked this segment a little bit, just going over the scenarios. But the way the NFL even structures the games is to the advantage of the viewer. So we have the Chiefs and Broncos on Saturday and the Cowboys and Eagles on Saturday. Well, one of the reasons they put the Chiefs on Saturday is because the Bengals and Titans, and specifically the Titans, play on Sunday. So there's a reason to watch the Chiefs game, because if the Chiefs win, then it gives them a chance at the number one seed. So then you have to go watch the Titans, because you go, well, now they have to win, right? And so there's a lot of interesting stuff here. They put the Sunday night game as the Chargers and Raiders because, unless the Colts lose to the Jaguars, which most likely will happen, that game will be for the final playoff spot. So, and to continue it, what was I just about to say? The Rams and 49ers and Cardinals and the Cardinals and Seahawks is at the exact same time, because they don't want a team to have an advantage. They don't want a team to rest the quarterback, stuff like that. So very interesting stuff. But going through the games, what are you most excited about? And I want to eventually get to the predictions of what we think the playoffs will be as well, going through those games. But what's a game you're really excited to watch this weekend, barring a quarterback sitting?
It's got to be the Sunday night game, the Chargers and the Raiders. That one to me is the most appealing because it's a divisional game, and whoever wins is in, right? I think at the beginning of the year, we saw this Chargers team and what they have, at least talent-wise on paper. Justin Herbert coming off of a fantastic rookie year, being rookie of the year, all that stuff. And I think the Chargers have underachieved a little bit, right? They've had some success early on, and then they've kind of teetered, but they're still right there. And I'm sorry, but if I get in the playoffs, I don't really want to play the Chargers. They have too much talent on their team. That's not a team that I want to play. And then the Raiders, like, how do the Raiders even have a chance, right? With all the dysfunction, losing their head coach, Henry Ruggs, Damian Arnett, like and then one of their rookie corners just got another DUI after the game on Sunday against the Colts, right? So it's like this Raiders team just has drama after drama after drama, and yet somehow they're hosting a huge Sunday night divisional matchup for a chance to get into the playoffs. So to me, that's the most intriguing because you have two teams that, one team I thought was automatically going to be in the playoffs at the start of the year. Another team I didn't think had a shot. And now they're both sitting with the same record, and it's mano a mano. Whoever wins is in, whoever loses, bye-bye. See you next season.
Yeah, no. I love that game too. I think my favorite game, now I do have a little bias towards this, but I'll back it up, is the 49ers and Rams. Because both these teams do need to win this game. Although one team's record is 12-4 and the other's is 9-7, and they're in the same division, both of them need to win this game. And when you look at what happened in the last game, the 49ers whooped on the Rams, and it realistically was the start of this just amazing streak for the 49ers and them becoming one of the best teams in the NFL over the last couple of weeks. So I'm super excited about that. For multiple reasons, but to see, two division opponents and one with a better record than the other, not, or with a significantly better record than the other, and the game still means something, and us to be like, oh, absolutely, the 49ers can win that game, I'm down for that, and it also not affect the Cardinals at all. It can only affect the Cardinals positively. So I'm excited about that one as well. But yeah, it's I'm excited about that Raiders Chargers game. The only thing that would deter it is that possible tie scenario where like if the Colts lose to the Jaguars, those teams could technically kneel the ball the whole game. So that's the only reason I'm not picking Raiders Chargers. That's not going to happen because I think the NFL would probably just kick them both out of the playoffs and be like, nah, Steelers are in. Don't do that. Right? But so, I'm going with that Rams 49ers game because no matter what, that's going to be a solid game. So, all right. Well, so I'll kind of do my little playoff prediction. What I do think will happen this weekend. So I'm looking at. I want to see really quickly. One of the.
You're just gonna do like AFC, NFC.
Yeah. I'll do it. I mean, Jared, if
just
you're
top to bottom.
Yeah, Jared, if you're ready to go, you can go because I just need to look up one thing, but it will be really quick.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'll start with the NFC. Obviously, we have some teams that are already solidified. Obviously, the Green Bay Packers, number 1 seed, they're going to get the first round bye. If they continue to win out, the road to the Super Bowl will go through Lambeau Field, the frozen tundra. Currently, right now, the Rams are in second place, and that's one of the most intriguing games as far as like that's close to a pick 'em for me. When it comes to the Rams and the 49ers. You know what, man? I'm going to say the 49ers are winning this game. The 49ers,
Thank you, Jared Smith.
Listen, man, they're playing a lot better. The Rams almost lost to the Ravens without Lamar Jackson and without all the, injured reserve players that the Ravens have, right? Matthew Stafford looks a little off, right? He threw 2 very interesting interceptions that, like, you would not expect a veteran quarterback of his stature to throw. So the Rams, even though, once again, like on paper, they have all the talent in the world to make it far in the playoffs, I don't know if I trust Matthew Stafford. I trust Sean McVay. I trust Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and some of the other players they have. but they just don't seem to be gelling right now. And I don't think that they get it done. I think the 49ers have their number. With that being said, I think that moves the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to the number 2 spot. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers are playing the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are a joke, right?
Yep.
They've had so many different quarterbacks playing throughout the year. They're not a good team. They will not let this game slide after almost losing to the Jets last week. So Green Bay number 1. I have the Bucs number 2. I'm not confident in this, but wait, actually, I would have to put the Cardinals then at number 3 because I think the Cardinals are going to beat Seattle.
Yeah.
And because the Cardinals beat Dallas last week, they would have that tiebreaker there. So the Cardinals are sitting number 3, sit at number 4. And then for the 3 wild card teams, I've got the 49ers because they are going to beat the Rams this Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles, who are already in the playoffs. And then that would leave.
Yeah, the Rams. Yeah, the Rams is number 5.
The Rams.
Yeah.
The Rams is the 5 seed. Yeah. So those would be my NFC teams. You want to go with your NFC?
Yeah. Okay, so I got obviously Packers number 1 seed. They already locked it up. I have the Rams finding a way to beat the 49ers this weekend because of what happened last week. The Rams have also been playing better. And although the 49ers have been playing well, they hit a little rough patch last week in their game. And also Trey Lance is playing or Jimmy G, and I don't trust either of those guys realistically at this point. Probably Trey Lance a little bit more, but there's a little quarterback questionable scenario there in 49ers. So I'll go with the Rams, safer pick. Buccaneers take care of the Panthers. I agree with everything you said about them. Number 3 seed, and the Cowboys at the number 4 seed. I'll explain what I think is going to happen with there. The Cowboys are 4 seed, Cardinals 5th seed. I got the Eagles finding a way to beat the Cowboys this weekend. I have the Eagles winning that game. So the Cowboys would be at, I think it would be 11-6. Let's check that really quickly. So I have some cops
They would.
going by.
I got something to say when you're done about that Cowboys.
Sure.
Game.
Yeah.
So that might change your mind.
Okay. So you got the Cowboys, number 4 seed, Cardinals 5th seed. I got the Eagles as the 6th seed. They would then jump the 49ers because they'd have a better record. And the 49ers are in the 7th seed. Now, my scenario, if the Saints were to win their game, the 49ers would be out. I think the Saints mess up the game against the Falcons and they don't win. So I think the 49ers still make it to the playoffs. But in my scenario, 49ers would not hold their own destiny at that point, and they would need New Orleans to have lost that game earlier, I believe. Let me check the schedule really quickly. I think those games are all at the same time. That'd be smart for the NFL to do that because then you would have the 49ers. Let's see. Yeah, so those games would be happening at the same time, so they wouldn't know. But, yeah, so those are my 7. No, go ahead, Jay. What were you going to say about the Cowboys?
After the way Dallas played on Sunday, I can't really argue with you about Philadelphia having a legit opportunity to beat Dallas on Saturday night. One of the reasons why I'm going to pick my team is not just because I'm a fan, but it's because Philadelphia currently has 12 players on the COVID list. Now, with the new updated protocols, if you're not positive, or even if you are and you're asymptomatic, you have a faster chance of coming back. So because the game is on Saturday and not Sunday, that's one less day that a player has. Yeah. But it's not just that there's 12, it's who is on the COVID list. Dallas Goedert, their star tight end. Fletcher Cox, their best defensive tackle, and one of the best defensive tackles, rated defensive tackles that doesn't really get talked about in the NFL, is among them, along with center Jason Kelsey. I believe their backup tight end as well, running backs Jordan Howard and Boston Scott, and then a litany of secondary players, 2 safeties and 2 cornerbacks. So with all that being said, majority, if not all of those players don't play for Philadelphia, and Dallas goes in there and loses that game, Dallas doesn't even deserve to be in the playoffs. Right? Like the NFL should be able to overrule Dallas and say, y'all can't beat a division opponent that has 12 players on the COVID list. So basically what I'm saying is, if this does hold up for the Eagles, unfortunately, I don't see how Jalen Hurts would basically have to put the entire team on his shoulders. I don't see how he'd be able to beat Dallas. Even though Dallas doesn't have Micah Parsons, he is on the COVID list and has been ruled out as well. But still, that's just 12 guys. That's a lot of dudes to be missing a game.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's big. But also the Cowboys are missing Micah Parsons. They're missing Tyron Smith still. They just lost.
No, I get it. I'm just saying that's.
And the Cowboys are the Eagles are hot and the Cowboys are not. So, look at everything's going right for the Eagles, right? Jalen Hurts is juking out of the way of fans and railings coming at him and stuff like that, and guardrails and all that stuff. So everything's going right for the Eagles. Jerry, isn't it funny? I remember us talking. I think you were live tweeting on our Twitter account that Eagles-Cowboys game earlier in the season. Like, what a change there's been with the Eagles specifically. Like, I look at them and I go, man, not only is starting Jalen Hurts like the right idea, but like this team is actually dangerous. I do love that in the NFC, all 7 teams, I believe, have a chance to win their first playoff game. Like, really, no matter who they're playing. I would think maybe if the Eagles were playing the Buccaneers, maybe that'd be a little tough one to predict, right? Which would be actually my scenario. But besides that, Eagles, I think, could beat the Rams. Eagles, I think, could beat the Cowboys and the Cardinals. And the 49ers, I think, absolutely could really beat any of these teams if they play the right scheme and the right scenario. So I do love that the NFC doesn't have that, like, stupid non-playoff team, kind of like we had last year with Washington, right? Everybody, even the wild card teams, potentially at the 7th seed, could beat the 2 seed or the 1 seed, right? So or at least have a chance. So very interesting stuff. I'll go with my AFC standings really quickly. What I think will happen.
I forgot about the AFC.
Yeah, I think Tennessee. I think Tennessee beats Houston, so they'll be the number 1 seed, and Kansas City will beat Denver. So those would be the top 2 seeds. Cincinnati, I think that the Browns are super lowly at this point. They got embarrassed on Monday Night Football with still most of their roster left, and Baker Mayfield played like trash. I think the Bengals still win this game with Brandon Allen. I think they have enough talent to where they still win this game with Brandon Allen. So they stay at the 3 seed. Buffalo wins their game, and at that point, it wouldn't matter with New England. So I think the top 5 stay exactly the way they are. I think the Colts win, so they're the 6th seed, realistically. So everything stays the same. And I think the Chargers find a way to win that Sunday night game, and they get into the playoffs as the 7th seed. So I think the standings right now as they are, I think stay exactly the same. Not too obviously crazy, but there's just some easier matchups for these AFC teams rather than NFC teams. And so I think that they get in. I think the Raiders have had a great season, considering what's going on with them. But I just think the Chargers have more talent. But Jared, the Chargers are the Chargers, so you never know. You never know with the Chargers. It'll come down to a field goal. It'll come down to a field goal and they'll miss it. Right?
Yeah, the Chargers should lead the league in finding new ways to lose a game. So you're right. I don't think we can just book that. But I'm gonna be boring, man. I agree with you. I think as currently constructed, I don't see really how Tennessee loses. I think they lock up the number 1 seed. Kansas City, should beat Denver. That's just, if Kansas City is who we think they are, that should be an easy win. I think really, to me, the only other wild card game, game up in the air, other than the Chargers and Raiders, would be the Bengals and the Browns, because they're both not really playing their starting quarterbacks. There's a lot of players, both offensively and defensively, that are missing. So I think Cincinnati should win, but that would be the only other game that I think could flip-flop. But I'll leave it as is. I'm going to be boring. I'm going with you as well. Cincinnati stays number 4, Patriots 5 as the first wild card team, and then the Colts, you better beat the damn Jaguars, and the Chargers at number 7. By the way, have you been watching that Hard Knocks? The in-season Hard Knocks for the Colts?
I watched the first couple episodes, and then I didn't want to watch the Colts beat us, so I stopped watching it. I didn't. So maybe I'll get game.
Yeah.
Is it good?
I just watched that one. What's interesting about those Hard Knocks shows is I feel like I'm now a bandwagon fan of the Colts. It's when you get that like in-depth access and
Yeah.
you get to, see these athletes kind of outside of football, like they're obviously like following some of the families home, and then you just get to know like Kenny Moore, their slot cornerback, like else to get that guy. Ever a free agent, go pick up Kenny Moore. Like there's just some guys on that team, man. Like I don't know how you can't not root for the Colts. So I'm rooting for the Colts to get into the playoffs because I don't think Carson Wentz is a guy that you can rely on and someone that can solely lead your team to the playoffs. But when you've got that offensive line, when you got Jonathan Taylor, who's been arguably the best running back in the league this year, especially ever since Derrick Henry got injured and he's been out, and then that defense with DeForest Buckner, Darius Leonard, and then Kenny Moore, the Colts, man, that's another scary team that if I'm an AFC opponent, I'm not trying to play the Colts in the playoffs. I would rather play the Chargers. I would definitely rather play the Raiders. And even though the Patriots have Bill Belichick, I want to play the Patriots over the Colts. Like the Colts either,
Sure.
I think they lead the league in takeaways from a defensive standpoint. So you know that they're going to be able to cause havoc and cause turnovers. That's a team, man, that I just, after watching that Hard Knocks, I'm a fan of them.
No, Jared, I'll say this. I saw them live, and I saw them win a game against us. Albeit we missed a bunch of field goals, but they won a game against us without Jonathan Taylor having much of an impact besides one run. I mean, it was Carson Wentz show. Like
on Christmas, they lost Darius Leonard to COVID, and their entire offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, Jared, you know I'm a football fan when I can be in the stadium. Yeah, when I can be in the stadium with my family, watch an NFL game, watch another NFL team beating my team, and be like, that's super impressive. Like, this is fun to watch. Like, this guy. And here's the thing. It's that Carson Wentz is healthy. When this guy's healthy, he's still a solid quarterback. Am I going to say great? No. But remember, those Eagles teams were, the number one seed before Nick Foles came in there and before Carson Wentz tore his ACL. They were there for a reason. And I think this team has turned into that Eagles team where when Carson Wentz is flowing and you have a good running back and you have a good system and a good team overall, this is the perfect scenario for the Colts. Really quickly before we get to the national championship game too, there is one scenario. Now, I'm predicting that the Patriots beat the Dolphins in Miami, but we know the history of Bill Belichick in Miami is not good sometimes. If the Patriots lose, and we expect the Colts to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Colts would be the 5th seed, the Patriots 6th seed. So the Patriots can lower to the 6th seed, and the Colts can absolutely be the 5th seed and play the Buffalo Bills potentially in a rematch of last year's wild card game if everything goes well. So really quickly, because the Colts also beat the Patriots this year. So now they don't even need the strength of schedule or the conference record. They would have the same record, and the Colts having the head-to-head win would be the 5th seed over the Patriots. So that's one more scenario I wanted to add. The Patriots do have the tiebreakers over the Raiders and Patriots, the Raiders and Chargers as well. So the Patriots can't lower to the 7th seed, but they can lower to the 6th seed. Absolutely. So again, a reason to maybe watch that Patriots-Dolphins game, right?
So then if you're the Patriots, like currently seeded, you'd be playing the Bills again.
You would be playing the Bills again, yes. And if they were the lower to the 6th,
would you rather play the Bills or would you rather play Cincinnati?
I mean, Jay, I would rather play the Bills. The Cincinnati Bengals at this point seem to be kind of on a high horse, and the Bills are kind of not backing into the playoffs, but Allen is not super healthy. You know that you know how to beat them. You've beaten them before, so I think the Patriots have really. I think they were a little bit overrated after they had that run only game in Buffalo. And since then, everyone's thought they're like the best team in the league, and they're not. They're a pretty average playoff team who I think could easily lose to the Chiefs, or the Titans, or even the Bengals. Yeah, it's interesting. But you got to remember, Jared, too, the Bengals losing and Buffalo winning, we don't know the third and fourth seeds are going to be that way. If the Bengals lose and the Bills win, the Bills are then third.
Right.
You have to play your game. I guess either way, you could just be like, screw it, who cares who we play? But, interesting stuff, though. Interesting stuff. Interesting. This is absolutely an interesting Sunday to watch some football. There are some games that do not matter, and there are some games that don't matter as much, and you almost just follow the score of. But there are absolutely some games that a lot of us are going to be watching this Sunday and excited about. So I'm excited, Jared. I don't know about you, but yeah, I'm glad our teams are in the playoffs and not fighting for playoff spot.
Times where I give the NFL praise.
Yeah.
And, I think from a player standpoint, I don't think a lot of them even wanted a Week 18 game. But from a fan point, thank you, NFL, for giving us a Week 18 and not starting the wild card this week. An extra week of football ain't never hurt nobody. So let's go, man. But let's move on, man. College championship.
Yeah, no, we got Georgia and Alabama, who we all expected, right, to be in the national championship. A rematch of the SEC championship game. A rematch of, I believe, was it the 2019 or 2018 national championship game? That was, Alabama, of course, winning because Georgia has not won for a while. But, it's Jared, I think we can say these are the two best teams in college football playing each other in the national championship. We obviously have the semifinals for a reason, but I do think these are the two best teams. Georgia getting a very solid statement win, a typical win when you look at what they've done all season against Michigan, and Alabama doing what they had to do against Cincinnati. Now, really quickly, Jared, your thoughts on the performances of these two teams in the semifinals and what that tells you about the finals?
I think they both did exactly what they had to do. I wasn't necessarily impressed because I thought those games were going to go exactly as they did, right? Alabama was going to stomp on Cincinnati. Listen, man, I praise Cincinnati all year long. They deserved to be in the college football playoff going undefeated. Congratulations to them. But you just ran into a juggernaut in Nick Saban and Alabama. I don't know many scenarios other than COVID or injuries where Cincinnati was going to beat Alabama, right? Alabama did exactly what they had to do. You go in and you beat a lesser opponent and you beat them down. Exactly what they did. Georgia did the same thing with Michigan. Now, that one was a little more surprising in the score because of how well Michigan had been playing, right? Obviously coming off that huge high of beating Ohio State for the first time in 10 years, having a fantastic running game, right? Jim Harbaugh getting some type of resurgence. But Georgia clearly was the better team. They have the better talent. I think they have the better coaching, and they came out and they executed and they simply dominated. I think one of the reasons why Michigan didn't play as well, and I'm not trying to make an excuse, but you have that huge high of beating your ultimate rival in Ohio State, and then you basically get a month off. I think if this game were to be played the week after and Michigan, kind of had that momentum, I think this game could have been a little different. But when you got a literally 3 weeks to a month off and you cool down and then you got to ramp back up again and you're going up against a Georgia opponent, I think it was just a little too much. So to me, neither of the games were surprising because that's how I expected them to go. And these are the two teams that I expected in the championship.
Yeah, well, and I think that's why, Jerry, when we look at what we want from college football, a lot of us want an 8-team playoff. We want a 12-team playoff. I get they want games on New Year's Day, and it's a tradition, but it would be nice to see momentum carry over, much like it would in the NFL playoffs, if Michigan would have, they would have beaten Ohio State and then trounced Iowa back-to-back weeks, and then they go in to play Georgia, and Georgia just got killed by Alabama. How interesting would that be, right? Now, in a 12-team and an 8-team scenario, obviously also those teams wouldn't be playing each other specifically in those rounds. But, I think we need to fix the college football scenario, and we need to not have these blowouts as much. I know that Georgia was technically the 3rd seed and Alabama was the 1 seed and all that stuff. But, Jerry, like we said, we kind of knew Michigan was probably losing to Georgia, and Cincinnati was definitely losing to Alabama. And Cincinnati didn't score a touchdown. And again, it's not a good look for the G5, right? Getting back to this game, I just want to go over the stats like I always do for these college football games and these big national championship games. Here we go. So Georgia, they're averaging 39 points a game on offense, allowing points allowed per game, Jared, 9.5. They are averaging less than 10 points allowed. I have never seen that in the modern era before. Total yards on offense, 450. Passing is 250. Yards rushing is 200, or essentially 200. That's very impressive as well. These are all averages, again, guys, not actual stats. And yards allowed on defense, 250 per game. That's 172 passing, 81 rushing. When you look at Alabama, they're averaging 41 points a game. Very impressive. They're allowing 20 points per game. Total yards per game is nearly 500 for Alabama. Now, here's the big jump. 336 passing yards per game, 158 rushing yards. So clearly a more passing attack from Alabama than we normally have seen. We already know that because Bryce Young's already broke the record for passing yards. So it's a different type of Alabama team than we really ever seen coming into this national championship. Yards allowed, 300 per game. That's 223 passing yards and 82 rush yards. So the rush yards between Georgia and Alabama allowing is essentially the same. So interesting stuff, Jared. When you look at those stats, I see ways that Georgia can stop Alabama, and I see ways that Alabama can stop or take advantage of Georgia. So your first thoughts on this game, and you can make your prediction as well if you want. Give me really just give me your full thoughts and what you think is going to happen.
Clearly the two best teams, right? This is the game that we wanted, a rematch of the SEC championship game. And to me, this is about Georgia showing if they can come back after getting dominated by Alabama in the SEC championship game, right? We know how great these two teams are. They have a great coaching staff. They're even in a lot of areas, right? I think the one difference is Georgia's defense this year is clearly better than Alabama's defense. Alabama's defense, though still good, though they still have five-star recruits all across the board, Nick Saban's defense doesn't quite have that same edge that you would expect or what we've come to see in the last, 5-10 years. But that would be the one edge that I will give to Georgia. Other than that, this game is as close to a pick'em, I think, as we've seen in a long time, right? And so I think from Georgia's standpoint, they continue what they do on defense, right? I think it's more of a bend but don't break for Georgia when it comes from a defensive standpoint. You're going to give up yards to Alabama. I don't think there's any way impossible that you only allow 9 points. Like, Alabama's going to score, but I think you have to force them to have long drives. You can't give up the 2-play 80-yard drive that goes for a bomb, right? And they just get that momentum right away. I think you have to force Alabama to sustain drives for long periods of time. And even though, the defense might get worn down a little bit, I think that is the better way of beating Alabama as opposed to these chunk plays. I think when Alabama gets those chunk plays, it kind of is playing a little bit better. So for Georgia, even though, like, the old saying is you want to get your defense off the field, Georgia kind of has to, control. It's okay. Give up yards. Just don't give up touchdowns.
Yeah.
Get them in the red zone and then play great red zone defense and force them to field goals. That, to me, is the main area where I think Georgia wins this game. If you're Alabama, I think, listen, I see Georgia, and I see that the total yards that they get, I see their elite running game. I'm not really sold on Stetson Bennett. I know that he has produced and that he's played very well, but I don't think he's the reason Georgia wins this game. I think Georgia wins this game because of their defense and how I just explained how they need to play, and because of their running game. Like, if they can run for 150 yards plus, then I think they have a legitimate chance to win this game. I know that Bennett can throw the ball. I know that he has playmakers. I don't know. It's something about me. I haven't been sold on him all year long. I think JT Daniel, formerly the USC quarterback, is actually a better prospect. But for some reason, Bennett has just, whether it's been in practice or whatever, he's just played better, and that's why he's gotten the start. So that would be my one flaw for Georgia, is I'm not sure that Bennett, in the biggest game of his life, would be able to lead Georgia, down the field for like a game-winning score or something like that if the game was close. So that's where I would lean towards Alabama, because I think Alabama has the better quarterback. And if the game were to come down to a last, last possession drive, I would lean towards Alabama in that front. So, like I said, like teetering back and forth in some type of ways, which I think is totally understandable and totally allowed. If you're asking me to make a prediction right now, I can't go against Nick Saban. It's that simple, right? To me, this doesn't come down to the players on the field. This comes down to the coaching staff. Nick Saban's been in too many of these games. He knows exactly how to get his players ready, literally from top to bottom. And to me, I think this is going to be a great game. It'll come down to the fourth quarter, but somehow, some way, the Crimson Tide once again hold the national championship trophy.
Interesting. I love the analysis, Jared. A lot to talk about there. When I look at the two teams, the way they played this year, right? Alabama struggled a lot more than Georgia did throughout the year. Now, I would say Alabama's schedule was most likely a little tougher, but they played a lot of similar teams, and a lot of the times Alabama played those teams, they struggled a little bit more than Georgia. Georgia seemed to dominate almost all of their games, if not all of their games, heading into that SEC championship game where they lost to Alabama. And it really wasn't close in any of the games, besides the first game where JT Daniels and they were trying to figure out who their quarterback was, and they were playing an odd Clemson team that I think a lot of people thought was going to be better this year. So when I look at the schedules and the whole year as a whole, I like Georgia better, okay? Now, when you look at that SEC championship game, that showed you the way to beat Georgia, right? Alabama dominated them. Even though Georgia took their usual lead like they do, Alabama came back with a passing attack, and like you mentioned, they made Stetson Bennett be the head playmaker, and he was not able to do that. Now, my opinion of that game was that Georgia did not care as much as Alabama, okay? They had already locked up a Final Four spot. They obviously weren't scared of playing anybody, whether it was Michigan or Alabama again or Cincinnati. So whatever, I think that they weren't fully into it. I think Alabama clearly needed to win. There was a chance that they weren't in the Final Four. So I'm going to take it that game wasn't as crucial for both teams as say it was for Alabama itself. When you look at the stats, I think the biggest stat here that throws everything away for both teams is that their rush yards allowed is the same thing, okay? Because Georgia's main thing is running the ball. Yards rushing per game is almost 200. It's Dalvin Cook's brother, right? He runs like his brother, and that's their identity, okay? When you look at Alabama, they pass a little bit more, but the fact that, the fact that they were able to do what they did against Cincinnati shows you they can do that against, a very, very good football team. Getting on to my prediction, okay? I think every single time you have a rematch in football specifically, especially if one game was a regular season game and the next was a playoff game, you kind of have to look at the team that lost and almost think they're going to be favored in the next game, especially if it's close. Like that's Jerry. That's what scares me if your Cowboys play my Cardinals, right, in the playoffs in the first round, right? That close, it's like, well, you just played that team and you can watch the film and literally remember what you did on the field. So like you got to give it to especially as a betting man like myself, you got to give it to the team that lost the last week. With this one, I think it's the same thing. I think what Georgia did to Michigan proved they're back. What Alabama did to Cincinnati proved they're the same team they were all year, a team that was able to win a lot of their games, obviously 13 out of 14, but there was a couple times where they didn't win the way they should have. And so I am going to favor Georgia in this game. I think Georgia does what they're supposed to do. I think they get out to a big enough lead to where they don't need Stetson Bennett to make the big plays. I think Bryce Young makes a couple mistakes here and there because they go to a kind of an all-out passing attack eventually in this game. I do not think Alabama can do what they did against Cincinnati because this ain't Cincinnati. This is Georgia. But it will be an interesting game. I like the line being 2.5. I think Georgia wins this game, by less than 10 for sure. And I think they win it by a touchdown or less. And so I'm going to go Georgia. Jared, you're going to Alabama. It's going to be a great game. And what's funny, Jared, too, is my anniversary with my girlfriend is always on January 10th. So this will be the second year in a row where I have to tape this ball game and watch it the next morning. So I will not be texting you guys on the 10th. I will watch the game early the 11th from an undisclosed location, not in California. And I will watch this game in the morning. I will have something to wake up to. But so interesting enough, the national championship for me is January 11th. For all you guys, January 10th. So I'll see you guys on Twitter on January 11th, not January 10th.
Yo, okay, you want to know what's so funny? My girlfriend's birthday is on the 10th, and
Look at
I've
that.
got like dinner reservations and all this stuff going on. So I'm not watching that game either. It might be on, some TV wherever I'm going. But I don't plan on watching that game until the next day either. So we're both in the same boat.
So maybe
the Cover 2 podcast will not be talking about the national championship game until Tuesday the 11th.
Yeah, Jared, we'll have to coordinate tweeting and all this stuff. Maybe I'll send out a couple pre-tweets and act like we're watching the game when we're really not. We'll just guess. We'll hey, George is winning by 14, and they're like down by 17, and we're like what is Cover 2 podcast talking
Never
about?
know.
Yeah.
Never
No, it should be fun. It's going to be a good game. I think it will not be a blowout like it was last year. And I do think we're actually going to get a really, really solid national championship game, much like we did with the last time these two teams. And I think this is Kirby Smart, a former Nick Saban assistant, is going to get his way. And he's going to be the first guy to really ruin Nick Saban's life in a national championship game and send Nick Saban into, recruiting 5 hours later as to how angry he'll be about losing the game. So fun stuff. It's going to be a fun football weekend, guys. Obviously, we have to watch this game on Tuesday, but you get Saturday, Sunday, and Monday of great NFL and college football action, and we're going to keep going. Also, we have the FCS title game this weekend too on Saturday before those NFL games as well. So you actually can watch football all Saturday, and it all has meaning. So very fun stuff. Next week, guys, we will be obviously recording about the national championship. We will be predicting the NFL playoffs, and we will also be talking about who won Bowl Mania. We'll have to add up the stats and see between me and Jared who won. We obviously are picking a different national champion. So we'll let you know who won. And if it does come out down to that game, we will have a definitive winner, which is nice. So, for Nick Nenad, I'm saying the Cover 2 podcast is done. So we'll see you next week.
I'm Jared Smith. I guess we're wrapping up, man.
I butchered the ending, but yeah. Well, hey, fun football weekend. We couldn't be more excited, and we'll see you guys next week.